Hello everyone, welcome back to the class. So started from this week, we are going into a routine of watch a movie or read a novel on Tuesday while going back to Zoom to have a synchronized discussion on Thursday as we did last time. And this week, the movie we're going to watch is titled In the Mood for Love, directed by a Hong Kong director, Wang Kar-wai. And in this video, I'm going to give you some brief introduction about this movie, this director, and some very interesting points I think you need to pay attention to while watching this movie. Okay, so now let's get started. So the title of the movie is called In the Mood for Love, and it is shot in 2000, so 20 years ago, pretty long time ago. And I think the first thing you need to pay attention to is the title. The English title is In the Mood for Love, which is pretty self-evident that this whole movie is centering on the theme of love. And the two characters is in the mood for love. They are seeking love. They're loving each other in the process of trying to figure out whether they love each other. And they are also have a lot of romantic interactions. So this title is pretty clear. But the Chinese title is actually 花样年华, or directly translated as flowery years. This term 花样年华 usually describes the most beautiful moments of one's lifetime. I think that's very interesting because first, the keyword love is not in the Chinese title. The Chinese title would rather provide you with a whole atmosphere of a period of time which is very beautiful, but in which perspective why it is beautiful is those questions you may raise, and while watching the movie you will have your own answer. So I think compared to the English title, the Chinese title is much more ambiguous and is intended to give you atmosphere, a whole kind of experience, but not directly pointed to the theme, to the keyword. And one very interesting fact is that 花样年华 is actually the same title as the song played from the radio later you'll see in the movie. So I won't spoil it too much, but pay attention to the song you will hear from a radio requested by an audience. And that song is a real song existed in history, sung by a singer called Zhou Xuan. I think that's a very interesting kind of in-text reference. So that kind of gives you an idea of, or kind of reminds you to again think about the question, what is actually the most beautiful moment in one's lifetime? And what is actually flowery years, and why this time of period happened in the movie is considered flowery years for the characters. This movie is actually very famous internationally. So in the 2000 Cannes Film Festival, this movie was nominated for the Best Pictures. And the Tony Liu, the male actor, the Cho Mo-won, the male protagonist basically in the whole movie, and the actor here in the picture, the left in this picture, was awarded Best Actor. So this film is well kind of recognized on that festival, and also in BBC's 2016 survey, this movie was voted the second best film of the 21st century by 177 film critics from around the world. So very well recognized, was very famous, and gained a lot of popularity not only within the critic circle, but also for the public as well. By the way, for the picture, that is a male actor, male protagonist, female protagonist, and the director. And In the Mood for Love is also considered a high peak, a very successful kind of production for the director Wang Kar-wai. So now let's turn to the director Wang Kar-wai. And he is very famous for produce without a script, which means he generally relies on instinct and improvisation rather than pre-prepared ideas. So there is a lot of kind of anecdote and gossip saying he will have all these actors and actresses gather together at some place where he will shoot a lot of footages and only edited a small amount of them to be the whole product. But because he has no script, he cannot tell the actor what you are going to act tomorrow. So they just gather there and film every day. Took a very tedious, long process for filming all these footages. That's why his movie usually will take years to produce. But this kind of also give him a very distinct style in the film market. So when you watch this film, you will realize the idea is kind of different from the well-recognized commercial movies we saw these days. There's no thriller, there's no very attracting or puzzling plot we need to figure out, and no cliche in a way, and very kind of emphasizing the whole atmosphere and the whole feeling of the multisensory experience when you watch a movie, like the color, the music, the dialogue, and the facial expression of the characters. All these things became very prominent. And the plot itself can be said pretty simple, but attractive in its own way. And he has two very famous collaborators. One is the production designer William Chen, Zhang Shuping, and the cinematographer Christopher Dolce. So you'll see how the color palette is placed in different frames and how they arrange to use that color but not that one. How they try to shoot in actually a pretty weird angle. All these things are directed by Wang Gawai, but are made possible by his collaborators. So his film is always focusing on mood and atmosphere rather than following convention. And supposedly people recognize his film as has a very beautiful and unique visual style, and he also uses a lot of music and especially pop songs. So even sometimes a lot of people will say Wang Gawai's movie is not so easy to understand and may try to have a taste of itself and set himself as a bar, but because of using all these pop songs, he still make a connection to the pop culture. And actually, I will argue it kind of roots deeply in pop culture and trying to build up something by itself. Actually, the movie we are going to watch is a trilogy. So the first one is Days of Being Wild or 阿飞正传. Oh, the second picture, I kind of messed up the order. But the first one is Days of Being Wild, which is shot in 1990. And 10 years after is In the Mood for Love, 花样年华. And 4 years after, Wang Gawai shot the last of the trilogy, which is 2046. So the timeline makes sense. So you can consider Days of Being Wild as some pre-story happened before what happened in the Mood for Love, and 2046 is what happened next. So actually, the male character, you'll see the Chomo one, appears again in 2046, but the female character didn't. So the story is different, but some characters remain the same, and the feeling is consistent in this trilogy. And there are two main characters in this movie. So one is Su Lezhen or Miss Chen, acted by Maggie Chen. If you see her, she is actually a very famous actress, so you may see her face a lot. And also the male character is Chou Mo Wan, or played by Tony Leung. So actually we'll see Tony Leung again later in another movie, Lost Caution. So it's the same male character, and he is a pretty good actor as well. So you'll see he kind of managed to play different roles in his own way. And yeah, these are the two characters. I won't spoil it into the story, so you'll get to find it by yourself when watching this movie. But I would like to point out some interesting points you need to pay attention to while watching this movie. First is the time. So this movie is set in 1960s, which is considered a turbulent time global-wise. Because at that time, Cold War between Soviet Union and United States is still going on. And there's a lot of independent movement happening in the world, especially the Cambodia one. And I will spoil it a little bit here because if you go to the very last part of the whole movie, you'll see Wang Kar-wai can actually insert a news piece, a news report of the independent movement in Cambodia. That is pretty out of nowhere if you watch the movie from the beginning to the end. And I think that's very interesting to make the connection of why to insert such a piece of news report and how that kind of political movement has any relationship to do with the love story in the main part of the movie, and how can we understand the kind of persistent effort to point it out the 1960s this time period and why that is very important. And also at that time, there's a Sino-Soviet split. So China is going through a very hard time dealing with the relationship with Soviet Union. And Hong Kong is in a kind of very tricky position. I think at that time, Hong Kong is still controlled by the British, but the British power is faded throughout the time. And Hong Kong can restore a very good relationship with the mainland China as well. So Hong Kong at that time is in a kind of tricky position. And that also kind of influenced our whole idea about the specific time presented in the movie. And the question will be how that influenced the love relationship of the two characters and why that is important. Another thing I would like to mention is the location. So this whole story, the whole love story is mainly happening in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is here. But when you go on with the story, you'll see some other places in the Southeast Asia was mentioned. For example, Singapore and later Cambodia. So we can consider the whole movie is setting in this bigger picture of a Southeast Asia. And that geographical location is important in a way of it kind of is one of the dense populated area in the whole world. And also people have very limited living space and are struggling to make their own living. And that geographical location naturally have a very hot weather. So and always have some kind of sudden rain depend on season. So they don't have the very distinctive 4 seasons, but they have rainy seasons versus the dry seasons. I think all these kind of elements constructed a vivid idea of what that love story is situated, where that love story is situated, and what kind of natural environment and natural and social environment that love story is happening in. And from the movie, you'll taste a lot about all these elements. And I think that's very interesting to try to make sense. How does all these elements of locations influence the idea about love between the characters? And one more thing is about the color and the music. So first for the color, I just would like to point out one very interesting color that is red, which is repeatedly used, or I would say overused in the whole movie. Even from the poster, you'll see red is the main color. And here I have two kind of screenshot. So the red curtain, the wet sheet, and later you'll see the female character is wearing a red coat. So red is very important. And why? Why red is so important, and why Wang Kar-wai used so many red, especially in this movie? I think that's also one very interesting question. And also some other colors too. We'll discuss that in Thursday's class. And also the music. So as we just discussed, Wang Kar-wai used a lot of pop songs and a lot of borrowing a lot of other songs from other movies into his own production. There's two pieces of music I would like you to pay extra attention to, and actually you won't forget about them after watching this movie. They will kind of lingering in your head. The first one is this Yumeji's theme. This is when you search any kind of clips about In the Mood for Love on YouTube, this kind of music will appear. So as you heard, this kind of very rhythmed and very elongated, that kind of idea, this kind of music happening in certain moments, and always compare with, for example, slow motion and a specific way of understanding or specific way of expressing emotions. And I do believe music play a very important part in building up all the ideas about love in this movie. So please pay attention to that. And here's another song you need to pay attention to, that is Quizás, 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 which is a very popular Cuba song. And in the title translated in English will be Perhaps, Perhaps, Perhaps. If you read the lyrics of the song, you will realize it is basically a male was complaining that every time he asks his wife, girlfriend, lover, like what to do, where to go, what should we do, something, the other part will reply with Quizás, 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 which is perhaps, perhaps, perhaps. So this song basically gives us an idea of nothing is determined, nothing is definite, and you will never get an answer in where like the way you would like to. That kind of idea, that kind of ambiguity, and it's very interesting and widely used in this movie as well. And lastly, I want to say a little bit about the theme. So the theme of the movie is kind of also debatable. I asked this question in Moodle as well. So I think ambiguity is one of the proper term we can frame the whole movie into. The ambiguity of the relationship, the ambiguity of the expression of emotions, the ambiguity of the way of narrative, all these kind of thing is kind of huddled together in this term of ambiguity. And there are several questions we may ask after watching this movie. For example, what is love? What is permitted and what is not, especially in love? And what is expected and what is not? What is right and what is wrong? Because this movie is about love, affair, individual choice, historical influence, all these things basically entangled together. So I think these are very interesting questions, and how would you kind of influence your idea about how to understand the theme of the movie. And one last bonus cultural tips is about Angkor Wat, which appears towards the end of the movie. And Angkor Wat is a temple complex in Cambodia, and it is considered the largest religious monument in the world by land area. They were founded in 12th century, and a lot of them are with beautiful carvings on the wall. They are stone structures, so basically they used to be temples, but a lot of times the rooftops is decayed because it's made of wood or something like that. but you'll still see a lot of the pillar are still there. A lot of walls are still there. And I put some pictures here. If you went to Cambodia to see Angkor Wat, you will realize that is really a place you will understand the time and how time shapes our world, and how time basically elapses in history. A lot of the walls is now occupied by plants, by the entangled roots, but some other temples are still well preserved, like the one in the middle. And also a lot of times you see a lot of decay, and it kind of reminds you of the end of the world, that kind of image. Even if this temple is built in 12th century, not too long ago, but because of all the erosion, because of the hot weather there, a lot of rain, erosion, so the walls are molded a lot of times, and a lot of decaying is happening because of the stone material, and that kind of brings you back in history and pose questions for you how to understand time, and what is the image for the end of the time. That's all for today. I really hope you enjoyed this movie, and please don't forget to leave a comments down below. So I will see you on Thursday. Okay, bye.